Huh?
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, featuring your hosts, Taylor Field and Ruben Olson.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Cryptid Clues, Campfire Clues. I am your host today, Taylor, and we have a very interesting encounters that we're going to dive into today. Speaking with this individual and her sighting that she had of this unknown cryptid, and a couple follow-up questions that were posed to her, and then a little bit more backstory into another encounter that she had as well. So before we get into that, a couple of plugs. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca is our website with our blog access available there. You can also find us on our social media channels, Cryptid Clues on Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook. Additionally, you can also find us on Patreon where you can get ad-free exclusive episodes early. Again, we just want to say massive shout outs and thank you to all you guys that have supported us over the past months. We've seen such an awesome amount of growth and new listeners to the show, and it's just been awesome just to have this community come together and just kind of talk more about these things, and we're happy to contribute whatever we find to this community and to our listeners. So again, we can't thank you enough for the continued support. Additionally though, if you have any questions, you want to say hi, you can send us an email, cryptidclues@gmail.com, and we're happy to take your message. But without further ado, I'm going to get into this now and this individual's post here, and yeah, let's have at it. And I quote, "A little backstory. My boyfriend and I live in rural North Michigan. The closest town is about 20 miles away, and the next closest is almost double that. We live right next to a huge national forest, so we have lots and lots of wildlife. On to our story. My boyfriend works nights, and has for most of our relationship. Often I will take him to work and pick him up, so we are on the road at night a lot. One night, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was headed to go get him from the gym after his shift. I had our dogs with me, a 2-year-old Doberman and a 14-year-old Husky. We came around a corner by our neighbors, and they have a large pasture with one horse in it. Never, in my 4 years, have I ever seen this horse out of his barn past nightfall. He retires to his shed when the light goes away and comes out with it. You can see into his shed as you round the corner. We got to the tree line on the back of the pasture and I saw it. It looked like a horse, but from the second I saw it, I knew it wasn't the horse. It was 4:30 a.m. I had just seen him in his shed, and all my hair stood up. My heart beat hard, and I got a very weird feeling. I had to brake at the same time as we were approaching a stop sign. I looked over at my Doberman in the passenger seat to see him with all his hair raised and his teeth bared. He let out a guttural growl that I felt in my chest, and the only other time I've seen him like that was the day his papa was walking around our backyard in the dark, and he didn't know he was out there. He is a very docile dog, and it takes a lot to make him weird. I had goosebumps and chills the whole 20 miles to town. Just 3 days ago now, my boyfriend was on his way home after work and the gym, when he came across the creature too. He said he saw a deer eating some trash that had been knocked over from a trash can at the end of a driveway. Didn't think anything of it until the deer stood up on its hind legs and walked across the road into the trees. My boyfriend is ex-infantry. I have never seen him nervous or rattled by anything in our 4 years together. But he got home and I knew something was off right away. He had goosebumps, which was the first time I've ever seen him have those. When he told me the story, it gave me goosebumps and the same chill again. I don't want to speak the name of the creature, but that I believe it to be. About 2 months ago, there was someone out here blabbling loudly about this creature. We told him to hush before he summoned it. Well, now here we are. There's many legends and stories of these lands. We live near where the Dogman comes from. Stories of Sasquatch pop up from the elderly now and again. Whatever this creature is, it's awfully close to our house. Now I'm wary of all the wildlife I see around. Though I'm sure I'll know if it's near again. I will. My boyfriend will. At least the one dog will. The husky has no senses left. He's far too old and lives in his own world. Still a healthy boy, though. I'll never forget the chill it sent down my spine. Nor the way it spooked my dog. Let this be a lesson on what you speak into existence. End quote. Absolutely incredible. I am learning myself every day about new cryptids and new sightings, encounters that take place. And this one particular cryptid that could be associated with this, the NotDeer, is something that I had heard referenced before, but this is the first time I've actually been able to speak to someone that had an experience that could closely relate to this being. Again, it's not solely confirmed that it could be a NotDeer. There's a variety of other things it could be. People could interpret it as a skinwalker, a shapeshifter, any of those things. And leading into the Q&A here, as I was able to pull some, we can kind of hone in on the different angles of what people might perceive to what she had seen, same as for her boyfriend. So looking at this, we have first question here, and I quote, "Chilling experience. Might be possible you saw a dogman?" And the answer, and I quote, "I don't think this creature was the dogman. It's usually seen on the other side of the large town we live near, and it doesn't change its appearance other than when it goes from all fours to standing. The creature we encountered has at least two shapes, one that looks like a deer and one that looks like a horse." End quote. We have another question here, and I quote, "Maybe it was a Sasquatch." And the answer, and I quote, "I don't believe so. I saw a Sasquatch when I was a girl, and have a few friends who have also claimed to have seen them. They are truly just large, hairy, human ape-like creatures. They will almost always get off sight immediately, very shy, and they try to avoid human contact at all costs, at least the ones around here. This thing was something different. To me, it looked just like the horse that lives in the pasture, but from the second I saw it, I knew it wasn't the horse. My boyfriend claims it was just a normal-looking deer until it stood on its hind legs, which, yes, deer do that. But it sent chills down his spine when it walked all the way into the trees across the road. I was suggested it's a NotDeer." End quote. So that's where this first mention comes, because she doesn't announce that in her first encounter when she is detailing it, but she lists it here. So we have these different possibilities with the dogman, the Sasquatch, and the NotDeer that's all kind of jumbled around. And we can kind of narrow out this, okay, if it's a deer, I'm attributing it that it didn't have the antlers. It probably was more along the lines of being a female deer. So it's just fascinating because some animals, like Ruben was telling me in the previous episode, they do walk on their hind legs. And they do that because maybe their fronts are injured or weak or something along those lines that are warranting it to walk on its hind legs. I'm not well versed in the anatomy of deer, and I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know that they could necessarily walk on their hind legs before, but doing a little bit of digging and looking into this now, it just reiterates that thing that, hey, there's a lot that I don't know, and this is truly just incredible that we have a deer that's done this, and not one occasion but two. The kicker is it changed forms, where the girl saw a horse do this when it clearly was not the only horse in that pasture, because there was a horse in the barn. And now we have this other thing that resembles a horse, but it's not the only thing alone in this pasture. And now we have the boyfriend who's claiming that it looked like a deer. And then we have people that are around the community saying the same thing, that there's a creature, a shapeshifter or something out there. And this community is also a lot of different areas for specific sightings. As mentioned in these Q&As, the dogman is on the other side of the large town where they live near, and Sasquatch are basically in another area as well, but they avoid all human contact, as mentioned. So Michigan is definitely a hub for many things, it seems like. And I quote, "The more I read your post, the more I leaned towards a shapeshifter or skinwalker." End unquote. I'm quoting the answer now. "That's what my boyfriend and I are leaning towards as well. There's stories about them. Not very common, but whispers are heard here and there. I think I've encountered a dogman before, which makes me think this wasn't it again. Could be a Sasquatch, as some have said. They also are around here, and are talked about more often. But all the stories of them, they're very tall, human-like creatures, and both of these were very plainly a horse and a deer, which is why we also thought a shapeshifter of a sort. End quote. I'm going to jump to a quick ad break here, and then we'll continue on back in this discussion. So we'll be right back. And we're back. So, I quote, happen to have pointy ears, glowing eyes, long snout, you're in Michigan. Dogman is a hell of a lot more likely than a skinwalker. And I quote the answer, lots of native land around here. Not sure exactly what tribe was near my area, but I digress. When I saw it, it looked like the horse that lives in the pasture. It was obscured slightly by some bushes, and I couldn't see its eyes, so I'm not sure if they glowed or not. As far as I could tell, it should have been the horse. Should have been. But I've seen that horse every day for years, and something about it was so off. It made me and my dog jumpy. End quote. So again, this is something you can attribute to just that sixth sense that some people have. We have that fight or flight response, and when we are in these situations and we know something is off, generally speaking, something isn't right, and something will be off. It's just a weird, tucked away human instinct, but maybe just a primal instinct as hunters, but we have it. So I followed out and reached out with some questions too, and this woman was very, very polite and respectful and gave me a little bit more insight too into the background, and I'm going to read that now, and I quote, I think this occurrence could have been a shapeshifter, though I would not be surprised if it was the dogman that I saw instead of the horse that lives in the pasture. I've seen that horse every day for years, and it's never been outside at night. Again, it was obscured by a few bushes, so it's fair that it could have been just a creature that size of a horse. I was actually born and raised in the town the dogman originated from, Big Rapids. I actually believe I did see one when I was a child. I also have horses, and I was out on a ride alone when I was around 12. I was about 3 miles out from any farms or buildings, and my horse suddenly got very spooked. We have many predators around, from bobcats to bears. I rode to a lake nearby, and across the lake and across the meadow a little ways, maybe a quarter-mile away, I saw something. I've seen bears before, and it was no bear. We were downwind, which is why my horse was spooked. I saw it walk. I saw it start to run after something. It moved like nothing I've ever seen before, and it was massive. Much larger than any black bear on record near here. Even from the distance, I could tell it was something else, but at the time, I didn't know what. I didn't connect the dots until a few years later. End quote. This is a big thing, and I'm glad that she came out and she told me more of this information about this experience she had when she was younger. I think that there is a large category of individuals that experience something and they don't know what it is. You can't attribute it to anything. Back in the day, again, without internet, all you had was newspapers, some books, and there wasn't a foundation that you could resort to that contained archives of information. So if you see a big hairy man or a big hairy dog or a deer walking on 2 legs, what are you going to do? You're probably going to bottle it up and bury it inside your memory. You can't stroll into town and start talking about this because people are going to look at you like you're crazy. Your neighbors will turn on you. Like, people were so prejudiced. People are still very prejudiced. There's no dismissal of that. It's more of a grace period now when you say, like, yeah, I'm into Bigfoot and Dogman. People kind of incline their head and look at you, but they're not going to run you out of town like they probably did back in the day. Many things were kept hidden away and buried down, just a few decades ago. And it's quite a shame because there's so many people that will die and take this stuff to their grave. And again, like, some people just can't talk about it, which is totally fair. These are traumatizing things that we're instilled to not think that these things could ever exist in the way that we are raised in our society as a civilization. And yet here we are with these things blatantly existing. And it just debunks and dethrones so much that we are made to understand and believe in as a society and as a civilization. So there's such a big disinformation that's going on, you could say, and people that experience this truth and this reality of these things are blacklisted and bumped out. And again, in that time period, there is not a proper way of connecting the dots and doing this research per se. So I'm glad that, again, this lady, a few years later, she was able to connect these dots and learn about what she saw. Again, this Bigfoot. And it's just fascinating. So this is a time in our lives where we have so much information and other podcasts that we can reference and information like through videos and everything that we can pull from. And it's fascinating. Again, not everything is accurate. Not everything is definitely set in stone. But it's a lot easier now, all in all, to put publicly that, hey, I had a Bigfoot sighting. I had a dogman sighting. And people are more well received to that. There are notions with the news and the media, it kind of dismisses it as like a little bit of a hoax, or the reporter talking on the TV, oh, over to you now, we say local legends over in the town across say that they're seeing a Bigfoot, and they kind of smile, and I understand how they're just trying to make it out like that, like it's just a mystery, probably a misidentification, make it kind of cheerful and hunky-punky, whatever you want to call it. And I personally don't like that, because I feel at the end of the day, there needs to be a very serious notion attached to this. And when you see a reporter laughing and smiling as they talk about it, then it kind of diminishes that realistic aspect. It kind of just puts like the kook kind of mentality. This is something where, if you've at all seen The Polar Express, I think this is a great movie to kind of associate it with this concept where they dive back into the dynamic of believing is seeing, seeing is believing. And you have this boy who, before he gets on the train and everything, he's supposed to be asleep, but he wakes up because he's just pondering this, like, what if, like, is Santa Claus is real? And he just pulls out the newspaper out of his closet or his dresser, and he looks at it, and he sees the kid pulling the beard off of Santa, and it's like, Santa's a fake or whatever. And he does this look where he snickers and just kind of like, ha, like, yeah, that's what I thought, like, I knew it. But he's doing that without all the proper information and without the proper research and the belief. So when you look into the mention here of how you have a news reporter, or you have individuals who come forward and they report this, or it gets debunked as a hoax, the general population genuinely reacts like this boy. And this scene always reminds me of that, because the general population will see on the TV the news reporter going, ha, yeah, the city across from us had a Bigfoot encounter of their own. Like, let's go over there and talk about it. And they chuckle, and then the person watching will do the same response, like, ha, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, just a hoax. Yeah, it's too far-fetched to push them out of their bubble of comfort. Again, that is our own unfortunate creative societal barrier that we've instilled in our generation going up. So I don't know where I'm really going. I'm kind of just ranting, but I just thought this is an interesting comparison to bring up at this time in relevance to where we ended off with this encounter and this experience. So I just thought it would be kind of a good moment to share my in-depth thoughts on it. So hopefully you guys understand what I was getting at. All in all, this encounter, multiple encounters, was fascinating, and it reaffirms as well when someone else sees something. I usually talk to the fact that the individual A will see something with individual B, both at the same time, witnessing something, and they can reaffirm that with each other. In this instance, this is just as valuable, because she had something happen. She, I don't believe, mentioned it right away, and then he had something happen. And then he mentioned it, though, at least after a little bit of prime, because she sensed that something was off. They both realized that they had something happen, and they confided in each other about that. And I think that is just as valuable as both seeing it at the same time and reaffirming each other. I think these are instances that need to happen much more consistently everywhere. It just helps people consciously, I think, be a little bit more calm and more self-aware of these things and what can happen. And again, it makes people not feel isolated or alone. So that is it. That's all I got to say. But again, this individual, I want to thank you again so very much for letting me reach out to you and providing me with a little bit more information and insight into this backstory, and providing the Q&A as well. Very, very awesome stuff. And I know you mentioned that if anything were to happen again in the future, you'd reach out, but I mean, for your benefit, I hope nothing does happen again, because this sounds like it's a very terrifying thing for you, and I don't wish that upon anybody. So until next time, you can find us again. CryptidClues.ca is our main website with all of our blog access, social media channels, Cryptid Clues, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Patreon, and again, if you have any questions, just want to say hi, you can send us an email, cryptidclues@gmail.com. So again, until next time, everyone, stay safe, take care, and we'll see you soon.